What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Platon photography is the feature of episode 7, season 1 of Abstract. Each week I'm going into each episode of Abstract, the series on Netflix, and just talking about each specific artist that's featured. And this one is all about photography. And photography is an art form that I got into as a kid, right around like middle school, high school time. Was given my dad's old film camera, 35 millimeter camera. Had a couple lenses that I can exchange. Learned what the aperture settings and film speeds and all kinds of different things. It was kind of an art form that I was going into high school in sophomore year, going into high school. Wanted to get into photography class, but it was full. So I ended up getting into art class, and here we are today. That kind of got me back in love with art versus photography. I still do photography now and then. It's more of a hobby, I would say, than anything. But to see Platon's work is just amazing. He's famous for his portrait work. Very minimal style, very like simple. I relate to his style in a lot of ways, especially doing my paintings that I'm doing, where he talks about in this episode how there's very few variables in the equipment that he uses, in the way he shoots. Everything is very similar. The one thing that changes from one piece to the next is the subject and the emotion that he gets from the subject. And just a really fun exploration into Platon's kind of upbringing, how he got into photography, what inspires his photography. Very similar to how comedians write their material, is how he looks at his photography, is very much stripping away everything except for the subject. There's not a lot of his pictures are taken in front of a solid, just either white or black background, depending on the emotion he wants to elicit in the picture. The black background making it more of an intimate setting versus the white background, just kind of, it illuminates everything in the photo quite a bit more. But he has a great way of building a rapport with his subject before taking the photos, really getting to know them and also getting to know their personality. Just a great kind of exploration into his process and his style. But I love it. I love the fact that he's all about, just getting rid of the unnecessary bits, leaving the thing that means the most. The overall structural composition of the photo is very much reliant on the subject. But just great iconic photos. It shows him interacting with Colin Powell as he's taking his portraits, going through different cameras and different lenses, but like in every shoot that he does, he uses the same lighting, he uses the same cameras, he uses the same film. He doesn't. There's no variation in the materials that he uses. There's only variation in the subjects and how the subjects are portrayed. Which, for me, like how that applies to me and the many faces that I do, my ink portrait series, abstract portrait series, is that I'm using the same brushes. There's probably like 10 different brushes that I use. I'm using just 2 colors, three, I guess, gold, blue, black, 4. Black, blue, yellow, and gold are the 4 inks that I use. No red. And then, of course, those colors will bleed together and get, different shades of green and all the values of blue and yellow. Like I'm able to get a lot of colors out of just using a few inks. But the real thing that's changing is the piece, the face, That's where I want. That's where I can focus all of my energy in coming up with something new and original, and not really having to worry about uh, like being surrounded by a million choices. Um, it's another thing that it reminds me of, actually, in film. There was a movement called the Dogma 95, which there was a few directors in, it's probably like the 80s, from overseas, and they wanted to, in a reaction to big blockbuster movies where they're using, you know, millions of different types of tools to create, a spectacle. It was all about stripping away everything, and there were like hard rules where you couldn't use fake lighting. You had to use film, and like a certain type of film, a certain type of camera. Like, it really forced you to be minimal in a lot of ways, but in that minimal amount of wiggle room, would force you to be creative in new ways. It would force you to be creative on screen, whether it's from displaying the credits for the film, because you can't have digital credits going up. So it's like, how are you going to do that? Placing the credits in the real world. Very much similar to how Platon does his photography. Just kind of that same mentality of just having everything the same, which also having everything, if you're using the same tools in the same way, it's also going to help you. You're going to develop a style from that, because it's going to have a specific look, that if you do it the same way, then it's always going to have that same look to it, even though the subjects change, which is a good way to kind of stand out in a way. Because if you have a million different options to do it, it's very easy to not have a consistent look for your work. And even how Platon captures, not after when he processes the film, he has a special like drum scanner where he puts like the negative on this like pipe thing, and it spins real fast as a laser. I don't know how this scanner works, but it's crazy, and it apparently gives like a raw kind of organic feel to the images that he then goes in Photoshop. And even in Photoshop, he limits what he uses. Like, he's very specific to say he never uses the lasso tool, which is like a selection tool in Photoshop that allows you to just outline an image and then copy and paste it. Like, everything he does in Photoshop, he does by hand, which I appreciate. Even in Photoshop, for me, like I've been using Photoshop forever, and there's a million features that Photoshop offers, a million tools, a million different ways to do the same thing. I know the tools that I use. There's only a handful of tools that I use on a regular basis, and a handful of techniques that I use to do everything. And it really, when you limit all of those things and you don't have all the distractions of options, you're able to do a lot of the work in your head, because you've done it so many times, and because you're using the same tools, it sticks in your head a lot better, a lot easier. So you're able to do so much of the work before the work is even started, which I appreciate that as well. So go check out Platon Photography. If you're into photography, I'm sure it would be inspirational to you. I love every episode of Abstract, obviously. That's why I'm going through episode by episode. I think there's one more episode in season 1. Yeah, there's interior design is the next one. And then I'll probably take a break before I go into season 2. Or I might just go right into season 2. I'm not sure. But for sure, go check out Platon Photography. It's episode 7, season 1 of Abstract over on Netflix. Highly recommend. Go check it out. And his studio is amazing. Like, the studio where, he's got computers set up to do Photoshop. He has a small staff that helps him, when he's doing his photography. They have everything set up, and they could just hand him while he's in the mix doing his stuff. It just, the complete setup he has, I would love to have for myself. have an area where I do Photoshop, have an area where I produce this show, have an area where, I do my artwork. Just would be an amazing thing. And I really enjoyed seeing his studio. But that's it for this episode. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Go buy my artwork over at inspireddisorder.com and save 25% when you use coupon code RTS. Follow me on social media at Ray Taylor. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!